Hi, everybody. It's Raghu Markus from Love Server Member Foundation. Sorry for that little technical glitch we had. Getting started a few minutes late. I am here with Mirabai Bush and Krishna Das, and we are going to introduce the proceedings today. This is a presentation of Love Server Member Foundation and Neem Karoli Baba Ashram and Hanuman Temple in Taos. And obviously, we are honoring Ramdas today. He died a year ago today. And all of the proceedings here, which I'll tell you what's going to, what we're going to present, is basically it's also a benefit for the temple in Taos because nobody can go there as of COVID. And so we're trying to help out that way. And something that was very, very dear to Ramdas's heart over all these years, of course, he brought that Hanuman Murti to Taos, and it meant a lot to him. And he obviously went there last July, Guru Purnima, 2019, for the inauguration of the temple. So we're going to have Krishna Das is here. He's going to sing a little bit. Mirabai and we're going to just chat a little bit. Rameshwar Das is going to come read some of Ramdas's book, the memoir, which is coming out January 12th. And by the way, you can go to a site called Being Ramdas, the name of the book, beingramdas.com, and you can see excerpts and pictures, and you can pre-order the book, which would be a great show. 3 movies. One is Evolution of a Yogi, which was done, Krishna Das and I are just talking, in 1970 at Ramdas's father's farm, where Ramdas held these beautiful weekend satsangs. So it's quite a film, short film. And then we're also going to show a film of Ramdas, just wonderful vignettes of Ramdas in Maui over the years, called Moments of Joy and Wisdom, Ramdas in Maui. And then the third film, which will be presented at the end by talking about Ramdas and all of the mentors. And it's funny, you were talking about their personalities were just hollowed out. I love that, because just today I did an intro to a Ramdas podcast about just that. It was The Problem of Personality was the name of the little talk that he gave. So yeah, go on. That was just funny.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, no, I remember when I came back from India in 1995, came back to New York, and I went to this friend's apartment, and they were watching video of Maharaji. And some of those old videos that the Barmans had taken. And I looked at it and I laughed, I laughed. And I said, that's not Maharaji. That's the Maharaji puppet. The real Maharaji is the puppeteer. And the puppeteer created this Maharaji puppet down here in this world to get our attention, because we are puppets and we have puppet eyes and we can only see other puppets. So in order to attract us, like, Krishna is called Mohan, which he who causes everyone to be attracted to him, to that loving presence. So that was a big thing. And Ramdas, of course, was a huge vehicle of Maharaji's presence. And that's what we always felt with him. And talking about the hollowing out of personalities, we've known Ramdas through all his many manifestations over the years, and we've watched him lose his attachment to separateness, and watched him, ripen into Maharaji's presence so much. It's been so beautiful to watch that over the years. So beautiful. And in the end, it was only love that mattered. He didn't care about anything else. He didn't care about his own body. He didn't care about, it was all Maharaji's doing, and he was just here to be love. And it was a wonderful thing to see. And I feel sorry for the people who knew him as a personality, because he was a very charismatic personality. It's hard to kind of change your way of knowing somebody, right? But he changed his being over the years, and we were very blessed to be a part of that, be present for that.
Before you, Mirabai, I just have to say one thing about what Krishnadas was just saying, and that's from the first, and Krishnadas, you talked about meeting him the very first time and how powerful that was.
Yeah.
And for all of us, and the same thing for me, and I think you and I have talked about this before. We might have had a similar experience, but from the first moment that he contacted me with those big blue eyes, and there was nobody else, nothing else, talk about hollowed out. There was no Richard Alpert, no Ramdas. There was just the moment, as he used to call it. And then when I left him, maybe it was 2 weeks. I know you were there till a week before he left. 2 weeks before he left, I went to say goodbye. He turned in his bed and gave that exact same presence. So from the very beginning to the very last time I saw him, there was a through line of just him, total unconditionality of love. Although, as you said, a lot went on from the early days to these days in Maui, for sure.
Yeah.
Mirabai?
Hi, everyone. What was I thinking saying I wanted to go after Krishnadas? All I want to do is just sit and be quiet.
You were thinking you were just going to straighten everybody out after I screwed them all up. That's what you were thinking.
I was going to start with the story. I'll do it anyhow, but it brings it back down to the ground for a moment. But Ramdas will take us back up. But it was today or yesterday. I was, thinking about doing this today. Before that, I want to say, just before this, I watched the Hanuman Maui video. So great. I'm sure it's recorded, and KD is chanting on it, but also it's just those who are still there taking you through the gardens there in Ramdas's puja, and really brought him to life. It was really great. Yesterday or day before, thinking about, of course, all of this, and again recognizing that we're doing this at the solstice, the conjunction of the two largest planets, Jupiter and Saturn, coming together. it's quite a cosmic moment right now, this anniversary of Ramdas's death, when the light begins to return again to the earth. So I was looking forward to it, and I bit into something and broke off the crowns on 2 front teeth. I said, oh dear, I got to get that fixed. My dentist is out of town. I found a dentist here who said he'd see me. I went there, and he, it turned out, was Indian. And I could tell he was South Indian, and we started chatting, and I said, oh yeah, I spent 2 years in India when I was younger, in the 70s, and he said, where'd you live then? And I thought, oh, he's never going to know. And then I just kind of went in my mind about how should I phrase this, And finally, I couldn't get it together because I was busy thinking about my teeth. So I said, Nainital. And he said, Nainital. I love Nainital. It was the last time I was in India, just before COVID. I was there, and I went to Nainital, and he said, the mountain's so beautiful, the lake so beautiful. He said, Tal means lake. It was, I thought, okay, Maharaji, I'm here. So he said, he looked into my mouth, and he said, oh, I see. All you want for Christmas is your 2 front teeth. And he did it. So,
That's great.
anyhow, that was the on the ground frame for what we're here to honor and celebrate Ramdas' anniversary of his death. And I was thinking and feeling that he gave us such a gift in the way that he died. I mean, I had been writing this book with him for 2 years on dying and loving. And so we got to talk about it a lot, which was really great. So he was at the physical level, he was like totally ready. He told us what he wanted to be in his bed. He only wanted a few good friends around him. He wanted it quiet or maybe some chanting. He hoped that he wouldn't be in too much pain because he wanted to keep his mind on Maharaji. He wanted a picture of Maharaji. And in fact, that is how he died. And then he said he wanted his ashes to go to Taos and some in the ocean in Maui. And in fact, that's where they will go when it's possible to travel again. But more important than all of that is that he was spiritually so ready. And in those couple of years before he died, of course, he was more ready than most, all of us. But he still was thinking, oh, there's some more teaching I would like to do, this and that, And then little by little, I saw over the years that he just let go and let go. And by the time he died, he was so ready. And he had really thought through what he thought would happen on the other side. He was so ready. And I realized, thinking about it today, that was such a gift to us, because I don't have any feeling of regret or, when some of your friends die, maybe you feel like they died too soon, or they wanted to do this and that before they died, or they hadn't really opened their hearts fully, and so what was it going to be like for them? But we know that he died in such a space of peace and ease and openness that I realized that ever since then, I felt like really good about his dying, even though, of course, we wished he would stay around more, but it was time, and he left. And beyond that, I thought that's a motivation for all of us to do the work we need to do so that when we die, the people who love us, who are still here, will also feel good about us dying instead of regretful. So I was feeling that a couple of nights ago. I had a dream about Ramdas, and it was the first dream I'd had of him since he died. And in the dream, we're sitting in a circle as if we were teaching together or leading some kind of meditation circle together. And we were waiting for something. And I reached around behind the person in between us, and I touched his hand. And in that moment, I felt this just surge of happiness and well-being and connection and love. Love is what it was. And then I dropped my hand, and then he leaned in and looked at me, like really looked at me and said, "I'm here."
Ah.
Wow. Oh.
Yeah, you are. You're here now, just like you said. But it was so real. I just, since then, it's been different.
Wow.
And then I was thinking of I was going to read a couple of very short pieces from Walking Each Other Home. These are just a paragraph each. This one is in a chapter called The Healing Power of Love. Just a moment. This happens when you're talking about a friend you've known for 50 years. You need your glasses. He said, "It's hard when it's someone you love deeply who's died. But death is the end of a body, not a soul. It isn't the end of your relationship with your loved one. It's an invitation to form a new relationship, soul to soul. When you're quiet enough, you realize that love is never lost, that they haven't gone anywhere. The love that you share is invulnerable, invulnerable to the winds of time. In fact, everybody you have ever loved is part of the fabric of your being now." Including Ramdas. This is a section called They Are Part of Me. Ramdas says, "When people we love die, they become part of us." Sorry. All my friends who've died are still here, still with me. I didn't lose anyone. Maharaji's here, and Stephen Levine. He populates my mind. Is it different from when Stephen was living in New Mexico, I asked. Well, we'd call each other on the phone then. I would bring his comments into myself. Now I bring all of him into myself. Love is reaching out to bring him and others in. Like when I work with Ramesh on my memoir, I have a hard time with the idea that my brothers and father and mother are not living. They are around. It's love, just love. I love every one of these people. I've taken them into myself. They have become you, I say. Yup, says Ramdas.
Yep.
That's all.
Thank you. Thanks, Mirabai. Wow. So we're going to show the first film, which is Evolution of a Yogi. And I just want to mention a couple of things that Mohan would kill me if I didn't say to everybody that this day, the 22nd, today of December, which is a year anniversary for Ramdas, is Maharaji's birthday, appearance day, they call it in India, is today as well, done by the lunar calendar. Just so happens, and that's kind of an amazing thing. So quite auspicious in so many different ways, huh? The solstice and those stars being aligned. It's unbelievable. So also, by the way, to help out the Tao's temple, Neem Karoli Baba temple, please, on the landing page on ramdas.org, so ramdas.org/support, celebration is a donate link, and that's where you can donate. It'll come through us, through the Love Serve, and it'll go to Tao's Temple. And last but not least, it's so tough these days that we can't get together. So many of us, it's certainly a big part of the suffering that's going on. But there is a Ramdas Fellowship, and just go to ramdas.org and I think /fellowship, and you'll be able to sign up and be with people on, of course, at this point, it's on Zoom, but local Zooms that we do around the country instead of the live presence of everyone gathering. It still is quite beautiful. And Krishna Das?
Yeah.
Can you take...
So I'm going to sing for a few minutes, and I thought it would be a great thing to sing one of the first tunes that we learned from Ramdas when he came back from India, before we went. It's a melody for Sri Ram Jai Ram. We can just sing this along together. It doesn't have to be call and response. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. 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 Shri Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram, 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 Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Shri Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai 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 Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Jai Ram. One quick story. One quick little story. In the temple with Maharaji in Vrindavan, there was a father and his young daughter who used to come and do the evening, the nighttime part of the chanting, because the Hare Krishna mantra was done all day long. But the nighttime session from about 10 at night to 4 in the morning was done by this young man and his daughter, young daughter. She was about 10 at the time, I think, and he was, something, late 20s. And they sang all night, just the two of them. And she played a very simple beat on the drum, like, just very simple. And he would play harmonium and sing this beautiful melody all night long. And so one time I was talking to Ramdas and I was saying, it's so sad, I said. That man, he died young, very shortly after Maharaji left the body. He became the Kirtanwala at this big temple in Vrindavan, big Krishna temple. But he died very young. And then I found out that his daughter also died very young. And I said to Ramdas, it just kind of breaks my heart. Ramdas just said, they may have died, but the name that they sang is still here with us. And Ramdas may have left the body, but everything that he is still here with us today. And will always be with us, even when we're not in this strange thing that we're carrying around. So, namaste.
Thank you. Oh, boy. Thank you, Mirabai. Boy, it's wonderful to be able to share, even on Zoom, like we've been doing, and all that satsang with you, Krishnadas, on Thursday nights. We're all lucky. So we're going to show the movie now, Evolution, the first of the 3 movies, The Evolution of a Yogi. Again, that was filmed in 1970 by Edna. Was it Edna Krishnadas?
Hartley,
Edna.
I think.
Hartley, yeah. Edna Hartley.
Hartley's the Hartley's.
Yeah.
Well, Raghu, one thing I have to say publicly, so there's a lot of pressure on you. That was Evolution of the Yogi in 1970. Now I want to see what the Yogi became by 2020, 2019.
Well, we're going to see that right after. Well, we're going to have Ramesh. He's going to read from that beautiful book. And then, we're going to see Ramdas over the 15 years in Maui. So the Hartleys came, and Krishnadas remembers them and met them. I didn't even, I said, Mohan, our friend, who's been with us since back in the day, who's spending time with me right now here in Ojai, said, you were there. I said, no, I wasn't there. I was at Ramdas's the gathering, but I don't remember any camera people or anything. And he showed me a picture of me in the picture with the microphone. With the shotgun. I said, okay, I guess I was there. But it's a beautiful film in terms of the historic nature of it is fantastic. And so please enjoy. It's brief. It's 20 minutes. And then we'll be back with Rameshwar Das, Evolution of a Yogi.
distracted by a thought. At another moment, there's a memory of something that happened to you as a child. On and on and on. Your thoughts are just racing along. And each sense, if I go like that, you will respond quickly. Now, can you imagine arriving at a place where your thoughts, like waves on an ocean, get calmer and calmer and calmer? Where the senses fall away until finally you are here. And I am here. We are beyond space, beyond time. We are in infinity. We are in eternal time.
I looked a lot different when I was a behavioral scientist doing psychological research. I was also teaching, doing therapy, and writing books at that time. In 1961, I started research with Tim Leary into the psychedelics. Politically, working with these chemicals was difficult. There was much publicity, and we did develop a degree of notoriety from our work. But we proceeded nevertheless, for these experiences touched our inner life in a way that psychology had never done. Through them, I touched a place inside myself that had been up to that moment covered over. It was a place behind all my social roles, even behind my own body or life or death. It was like pure eternal consciousness. But even after 300 more psychedelic experiences, I still could only remain in these very high states of consciousness for brief periods. I kept coming down. The psychedelics had definitely shown me the possibility of higher consciousness, but I kept coming down. Finally, in 1967, I went to India in search of greater understanding of these phenomena, for I realized we just didn't know enough. India has a very rich spiritual tradition, a history of a great profusion of saints, mystics, visionaries, even up to the present time. All of the villages abound with stories of miracles similar to those found in the Bible. Of course, finding a living saint or mystic is quite another matter. I spent many months searching throughout northern India, and finally, I met one of these special beings. He knew much about my past, more than he could know by rational means. But more important even than his miraculous powers was the awesome sense of his presence. Here was a flesh and blood testimony to the possibility that a man could attain yoga or union in this very life. I remained many months at a tiny temple in the Himalayas, undergoing the first stages of intensive yogic training under this man's supervision. Then I felt a certain responsibility to share what I had learned. It made it necessary to return to America, at least for a few years before continuing my studies in India. Once back in the United States, I continued my work alone for several months in a cabin in the woods. Slowly, however, at first a trickle, then a stream, and finally a river of visitors came by, and I came to realize the extraordinarily intense seeking that exists within large numbers of Americans for discipline that would help them to purify themselves in order to find a deeper state of consciousness within. In the summer, many of these serious seekers came to study, and they even set up their tents on my family's land in order to live nearby. Throughout the summer, I shared with them what I had learned. A number of general and specific books concerning these methods are available in English, and we studied these together. But more important than books in the transformation of an individual is his daily moment-to-moment life. So we spent much effort in exploring methods of working and living as consciously as possible. We utilized methods developed both in the East and the West by people such as the Russian philosopher Gurdjieff, the European existentialists, as well as techniques enunciated in books such as the Hindu Bible, the Bhagavad Gita or Song of God, and the Chinese Book of Wisdom, the Tao Te Ching. These techniques require the application of a method of doing a task which demands total involvement and at the same time total non-attachment. The Gita says, "Do what you must do, but be not attached to the fruits of your action." We built a large meeting house called the Darshan House, and it was quite an experience for all of us to remember from moment to moment that the construction of the building was the exercise itself, not the completion of the building. Similarly, we created and participated in several community meals.
Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva.
These were exercises in preparing and eating food in a conscious fashion. Most people in the United States just eat while thinking of something else or talking, and therefore eat much more food than they need. Besides these techniques of working consciously, we spent considerable effort in learning methods of utilizing each of our senses in the same fashion. That is, with dispassion and yet full involvement. It is no easy matter to listen to and enjoy music in a beautiful outdoor setting without being so carried away by the pleasure of the experience that one loses one's calm center. Meditation, of course, helps greatly in calming the mind down enough to develop such an ability for non-attached action and experiencing. We meditated together in the morning and evening, and alone at other times in the day, in order to learn this type of mental control. Some of the group even went into meditation caves in the woods for as long as 5 days or a week of almost continuous meditation exercises. In order to explore these and other ideas, we gathered together on weekends, along with members from the local community and weekend visitors, some of whom came from considerable distances. These darshans, that means a meeting of the spirit, helped me, and I guess all of us for that matter, to clarify our own thinking about what it was we were doing and the philosophy underlying these efforts.
Almost every major religion originated from one or more men who were able to achieve higher states of consciousness. These men, called visionaries or mystics, through one means or another, entered into the spirit, became one with God. William James talks of these states of consciousness in writings in 1906 when he said, "Our normal waking consciousness is but one special type of consciousness, whilst all about it, parted from it by the filmiest of screens, there lie other types of mentality entirely different." And he goes on to say that no view of our universe in its totality can be complete which fails to take these other types of consciousness into consideration. But how to enter into them is the question. And while these men, these mystics, have to a man reported that their experience was ineffable, was indescribable, they have nevertheless handed down to us methods, clues, techniques, so that we ourselves if our intent is pure and our purpose is considered and steadfast, can ourselves experience these altered states of consciousness. Hinduism enunciates such a method called yoga, meaning union. The Vedas, the oldest books of Hinduism, gave suggestions for this method. This system, although it is old, is extremely effective even today and is, in fact, an exquisitely articulated scientific method for altering one's state of consciousness. The method is called Raja Yoga, the kingly yoga, the kingly method of union with God. It means calming our thought process so that finally we are able to go behind our senses and behind even our thoughts to the doorway. And when the time is ready, it is the possibility of each individual to go through that doorway and find the place within himself where he is divine. At some time or another, you have undoubtedly been sitting in a room where a clock was ticking. And you have gotten so involved in reading a book or an interesting article in a magazine that you failed to hear the clock tick. Now, during that time, the clock continued to tick because the minute you're finished with the article, you hear the clock again. Not only was the clock continuing to tick, but actually your ear was still recording the sound of the clock. What had happened? Specifically, your awareness was directed specifically towards what came in through your eyes rather than what came in through your ears. This process is an involuntary one for you. The yogi, by a method of discipline that he has imposed upon himself, is able to extricate himself from his senses. That is, he's able to take his awareness and bring it back from his ear hearing, his eye seeing, his nose smelling, his tongue tasting, and his skin feeling. In this way, he is able to direct his awareness inward, focusing at some times on the ajna, the point between the eyebrows, or on the anahata, a place in the heart region, and keep his mind steadily there, unaffected by his senses. The image is suggested of a candle flame, which flickers when the wind blows. The yogi is able to place the candle of his awareness or his attention in a niche within himself where the winds do not make the candle flame move. That is, where a sound or a sight or a smell or a taste or a sensation on the skin does not distract him. What is left to distract him, of course, are still his own thoughts, his memories, his plans. And it is here where the discipline that the yogi must impose upon himself becomes exquisitely difficult and something requiring an extraordinary amount of patience. Because he is able, after a time, to go behind his own thought process. Albert Einstein said, "I did not arrive at my understanding of the fundamental laws of the universe through my rational thought process." And in fact, most of the great breakthroughs for mankind in civilization have come through men who were able to touch these higher places inside where they got free for a moment of their senses and their thought process, and were able to achieve a union, a yoga, a union with God. To describe in more exact details what has happened to a person when he has succeeded in extricating himself from his senses and his thoughts, one must realize what Buddha has said, that man's problem is his attachment to his senses and his thoughts, and only when he frees himself of this attachment is he able to free himself from the illusion that creates suffering. This higher place inside one is but a thin veil away. Most people do not know of it. Of those who know of it, few ever attempt to find it. Of those few who attempt to find it, few of them ever succeed. And yet it is possible for an individual like you or like me, by a method, by a discipline that is imposed upon oneself, to alter one's own consciousness, to enter into realms where one is now free of a specific location in time and space. Ram Tirth, a realized being in India, said of this place, in describing who one is when one gets to this place, "I am without form, without limit, beyond space, beyond time. I am in everything, everything is in me." What could it mean to be free of a time and space locus? It means, finally, that the distinction between subject and object is gone. It means that I am one with the tree. I am one with the water, with the air. I am one with you. If you were able to go behind your senses and your thoughts, and I was able to go behind my senses and my thoughts, you and I would reside in pure consciousness. There is only one consciousness. At that moment, you and I would know unity. We would be one.
You can't calm your mind if you're continually distracted by the agitation of your body. The body is the environment in which you dwell. It's often referred to as the temple within which one does one's inner work. So maintenance of the body temple was an important aspect of our work. This form of yoga, which when it is done properly is also a form of prayer, is called Hatha Yoga. And it involves getting in and out of a set of asanas, or body positions. These ultimately allow a person to become sensitized to certain nerves in his body with which he must work in other parts of yoga, as well as making it possible to sit in cross-legged fashion for long periods of meditation without being distracted by the tensions within his body. Another part of Hatha Yoga concerns control of the breath, called pranayama. The utilization of energy within the body is crucial in higher forms of yoga. And to this end, techniques of control of energy through control of the breath are an important part of the discipline. These breathing exercises finally allow one to move energy from the lower parts of the body, where it is used for external action, digestion, and reproduction, up the spine into the head, where it can be utilized to achieve higher states of consciousness. Singing and dancing utilize the emotions as a vehicle for helping the individual to enter into higher states of consciousness. By opening one's heart to a higher being, such as is done in Hinduism through the repetitive chanting of the name of various incarnations of God, such as Krishna and Ram, the devotee is able to ultimately merge with God. In the Muslim religion, the whirling dervishes, known as Sufis, use the dance along with the praising of Allah, their name for God, in a similar fashion. Allahu, 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 Allahu. Both singing and dancing are forms of what is called Bhakti Yoga, the yoga of love. Meher Baba, an Indian Sufi, has said, and I quote, "Love has to spring spontaneously from within, and it is in no way amenable to any form of inner or outer force. Love and coercion can never go together, but though love cannot be forced on anyone, it can be awakened in him through love itself. Love is essentially self-communicative. Those who do not have it catch it from those who have it. True love is unconquerable and irresistible, and it goes on gathering power and spreading itself until eventually it transforms everyone whom it touches." A very different method, though still a part of yoga, is the calming of the mind by sitting down before a candle. Just hanging out with the candle. Not trying, just letting the thoughts go by and keeping the attention directed towards the candle. After a while, one's thoughts become noticeable as a passing, continuous stream of almost random associations. What am I doing here? My leg hurts. I'm hungry. I'll never get enlightened this way, and so on. At this point, one is staggered by the profusion and racing nature of one's thoughts. Vivekananda has said that the mind in this stage is like a drunken monkey, or one can think of it as a turbulent ocean. With such a confusion of thoughts, the deeper aspects of one's being, just as the depths of the water, are lost from view, and one totally identifies with each thought. As meditation proceeds, the meditator very slowly learns to let the thoughts go by and stay in an inner place. This is the beginning of the breaking of the identification with thoughts. After a while, the thoughts become both less frequent and less intense, and the ocean of the mind calms. Then one begins to get a glimpse of the depths within. Finally, after one is totally free from attachment to one's thoughts, the mind has become calm, and its depth, in all its profundity and light, comes into view. Now one finds one's own self-luminous nature. I am the great sun, but you do not see me. I am your husband, but you turn away. I am the captive, but you do not free me. I am the captain, you will not obey. I am the truth, but you will not believe me. I am that city where you will not stay. I am your wife, your child, but you will leave me. I am that God to whom you will not pray. I am your counsel, but you do not hear me. I am your lover, whom you will betray. I am the victor, but you do not cheer me. I am the holy dove that you will slay. I am your life, but if you will not name me, seal up your soul with tears and never blame me.
How about Ramdas 1970? I was just telling Rameshwar Das, who's coming on now, and he's going to do some readings from the book that he wrote with Ramdas over a 6-year period. But we 10? You're kidding. 10 years. Oh my God. It's an amazing book, and Ramesh is going to show you a picture of it in a second. But he reminded me it's Elda Hartley who did Evolution of a Yogi with her husband. So I got that wrong. I wanted to correct that. And meanwhile, 10 years in the making, being Ramdas and Rameshwar Das. And Ramesh has written a couple of other books with Ramdas over the years that he was in Maui. Be Loved Now and Polishing the Mirror. And this was really, let's say you put the time in, didn't you? So
what time?
Time, what is time? But you know what? You got to spend all that time with Ramdas. You are a very lucky, graced guy. So, now, please show the book.
Let's see if this will work.
Okay, there it is, being Ramdas. Look at that. And Ramesh took that picture, too. It's fantastic. Oh, boy. Thank you. So, again, the book is January 12th, not to do a whole commercial here, but it comes out on January 12th. And go to beingramdas.com and you'll be able to see some excerpts, etc. And at this point, we'd love for you to do a little pre-order because it'll help. It'll help get real presents for the book. And when you see it, you will agree. It is quite a beautiful book. So go ahead, Ramesh. A couple of readings.
Okay. Well, one of the alternate titles for the book, which is now the title is Being Ramdas, we started out, one of them was Ramdas and Incarnation. And I realized he really saw this lifetime as a lifetime. He didn't see it as his entire being, as most of us are lost in most of the time. And that was a very different inflection, and it I think it does permeate the book. And it was the idea of his doing a memoir did not appeal to Ramdas, and so I invented a conspiracy so I would get to spend all this time with him working on it. And the idea of it is that we looked at his life through Maharaji's eyes, those eyes of unconditional love, the seeing all of it, not just this incarnation. So I'm going to read some short pieces of it just for fun. And a lot of it is about identity. This is from the introduction at the beginning. This book is about the internal journey. Who I am is awareness and deep love, a presence beyond experience within a temporal changing form. Who I am is a soul without a name, address, social security number, or biography, who isn't born and doesn't die. I am. I see this life as an incarnation, as an evolutionary progression of the soul, a journey not just in this life, but through many lives. As Westerners, we're taught to bookend our lives with birth and death. However, from my experience with death and sitting with dying people, I find this to be a limited view. Reincarnation resonates for me because it connects my consciousness and spirit to the cycle of births and death. It's not so much about bookends or beginnings and endings. Life and death are a continuum. And we went through a lot of his childhood, and I had the feeling that it was like, pulling up all this karma, some of it messy and some that he hadn't really worked out. And he was looking at it and letting it go a lot. My family's protective love could feel maddening to me as the youngest. When I was 1, the kidnapping of the 20-month-old son of the famed transatlantic aviator Charles Lindbergh prompted my father to install iron bars on my bedroom windows to deter kidnappers. In my child's imagination, they were prison bars. A few years later, I was hospitalized with pneumonia, a feared killer. This was before antibiotics, and treatment was weeks of quarantine in an oxygen tent. I was too young to read much. TV wasn't really a thing yet. I was not allowed outside contact. Though my family was terrified of losing me, I felt like a hostage, a lonely prisoner in a cellophane tent, while my mother monitored every detail from outside. I remember feeling isolated and alone. Part of my original attraction to psychology had been to better understand my family, in particular my relationship with mother. Freudian psychology, of course, focuses a lot on child development and mother-infant relations. Sears, who was the professor he was working under, Sears knew a Freudian psychologist in Palo Alto and connected us. I decided to undergo Freudian analysis myself. Freudian analysis was going mainstream. Time magazine put Freud on its cover in the spring of 1956.
But I wasn't doing it just for the personal insight. Clinical psychology was becoming a vocation, a valid part of social psychology. After my experience at Boston Psychopathic, which was an internship he'd done as a college student where he witnessed what do you call them? When they slice your brain in half. Anyway. Having a brain freeze. I was interested in learning about approaches that restored patients without medical intervention. I marched into Stanford's counseling center and announced that I wanted to study clinical psychology and work as a therapist. I was accepted with the condition that, as part of my training, I undergo psychoanalysis myself, which I already planned to do. Freudian psychoanalysis was a further education in witnessing, in observing the workings of the mind, as I'd already been practicing in a profoundly personal way. My ego was observing itself as a thinking mind and seeing my analyst's ego caught up in his role as psychiatrist. Though I couldn't articulate it then, what was missing was the soul. And this is jumping forward to the psychedelic studies at Harvard. And this was the first time that they had been exposed to LSD, which was brought to them by a slightly mad Englishman who had a mayonnaise jar full of LSD kind of mixed with I guess sort of powdered sugar into a paste. Eventually, I decided to lick the spoon myself. When I finally did, I realized that all this time in previous psychedelic sessions, I had been screwing around in the astral plane. LSD went beyond the astral, beyond form. It took you deeper, stripping away more of the layers of mind, and it lasted much longer. The peak of a trip carried you into a nova of consciousness and pure energy. Psilocybin had opened my spiritual heart. Now, LSD opened the recesses of my mind and connected me to the very source of cosmic energy. No wonder Tim hadn't been able to speak. So when Tim Leary had taken LSD for the first time, he hadn't spoken for 5 days afterwards, and Ramdas was walking around saying, "We've lost Tim, we've lost Tim." So near the end of the time with psychedelics, he was thinking about going to India. They had encountered the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which Aldous Huxley gave them, and that became the model for the psychedelic experience. And there was Ramdas realized that there were people in the East who had the maps for consciousness that they had been kind of wandering in the wilderness without. Maybe trying to find someone who knew was a wild goose chase. Was looking for a wise man a kind of quixotic parental quest? Was it wishful thinking, wanting a sage who could teach me? But I needed to understand transcendence. I'd blown through the psychology profession and burned my bridges to academia. I'd explored all the chemical possibilities I could find. If I headed east, maybe I could find someone who could read the maps of consciousness. There had to be people who did know. It was worth a try. At the very least, it would be an adventure. and this is jumping forward to after Maharaji takes LSD. And Ramdas returned for the second time to India. And Maharaji proved the point. My doubts about whether Maharaji had consumed the LSD I'd given him on my first trip to India had carved a well-worn rut in my mind. In the U.S., I'd reverted to my psychologist role, thinking of him as a subject in an experiment. It was my rational mind trying to explain what I'd seen. There was also a vestige of my cynical professorial self that didn't believe. Once back in India, though, my concerns seemed unimportant. In his presence, my doubts receded until he reminded me. I went to my room and got my medicine bag. I had 5 white lightning LSD pills, but one was broken. He took the 4 whole ones out of my hand, one at a time, then one at a time so I could see. He carefully placed them in his mouth, making an ah sound as if he really enjoyed them. He was hamming it up for dramatic effect. He asked for water and said, "Will it make me insane?" "Probably," I said. He pulled the blanket up over his head and, after disappearing for a minute, peeked out. His eyes were rolling around in his head, and his tongue was hanging out the side of his mouth. His face had an expression of shock. He looked completely psychotic. Oh, God, what have I done? I thought in a panic. I had gauged his weight, but I didn't know his age, and there was no telling what such a heavy dose would do to him this time. He was such a sweet old man. Maharaji laughed delightedly. It was a total put-on. He stopped play-acting and said, "Got anything stronger?" He was beaming. He was just playing with my mind like a kid with a toy. He went back to talking with people, completely ordinary conversations, at least for Maharaji. I was watching like a hawk. Nothing happened. Nothing at all. This is after the stroke in 1997. My stroke, my health, my being at such a physical distance from my audiences, all these things could have left me isolated. Instead, I discovered I could still serve in deep ways. My physical frailty allowed me to feel the pain of others more acutely. Though I couldn't work directly with the homeless or others in need, I could still serve by offering a spiritual perspective. I could help change the world in more subtle ways. Gandhi said, "When you surrender completely to God as the only truth worth having, you find yourself in the service of all that exists. It becomes your joy and recreation. You never tire of serving others." Billions of acts create suffering in the world, acts of ignorance, greed, violence. But in the same way, each act of caring, the billion tiny ways that we offer compassion, wisdom, and joy to one another, serves to preserve and heal our world. When I help someone change their perspective on their individual problems, I also change society. Mayor Baba said, "Love is like a disease. Those who don't have it catch it from those who do. Love is transmitted from Maharaji's heart to my heart, to your heart, and to the next heart, one to another." I was born right after the Great Depression, and in World War II, I saw what happened when people seized power over others. The evolution of my soul took place concurrently with a spiritual awakening in the 70s, a call to service in the 80s, a hunger for dignity in the 90s. This was the stage set for my incarnation. Tim Leary and I didn't just share psilocybin and LSD. We shared an amazing cultural moment of transformation, a collective internal journey that played out on a national stage. The real change that came from psychedelics was not hippie drug culture, but opening people to their inner nature, to their soul. Psychedelics were a gateway. Psychedelics were a gateway drug, all right, but not to more drugs. They were an opening to the living spirit beyond the materialist and existential constructs of the 1950s. Because of that opening, Eastern philosophy and inner exploration have penetrated deeply into our culture. Karma is now part of the English language. Meditation is an accepted practice, and there are yoga studios on every street corner. I was with Ramdas when he left his body, and it was the first time I'd been with anybody at that moment. And it wasn't a moment, it was a process of leaving his body. And it made a very deep impression on me. And after his body stopped breathing, and I think he was out of his body before his body stopped completely. I guess that happens that way. And I was really broken up about it, and at the same time I was so happy for him to get out of that body, which was such a drag finally. He had infection after infection and kept taking these stronger and stronger antibiotics, and he had neuropathy in his feet, and it was pretty rugged. And I think he really stayed around for other people more than for himself. I'm sure if I had been in his situation, I wouldn't have lasted that long. We shared this understanding, his understanding that Maharaji is not a person or our dead guru who was that body, but a state of being or presence, of infinite awareness and unconditional love. If we have to put a name on it, which we don't, it comes down to the equivalence made by Ramana Maharshi that God, Guru, and Self are the same. Whether we fell short is for you to decide, but that's the point of view of the book and the anchor for Ramdas' life. So I went on too long, didn't I, Raghu?
Yeah. Well, we had those technical problems, and we just want to get everything in so everybody can participate. But thank you so much, Ramesh. This book is so rich, so rich. You can get other excerpts beingramdas.com.
No, it's on beingramdas at soundstrue.com.
Actually, if they got it, so you just go beingramdas.com and they got that URL. Anyhow, it's whatever you can do to pre-order would be great. And again, this whole presentation is Love, Serve, Remember, as well as the Neem Karoli Baba Ashram and Hanuman Temple in Taos. And it is a benefit for the Taoist temple,
which is closed.
Which
for
is
COVID.
closed. So support, as it is in so many different ways across the board, from nonprofits to individuals. So, but whatever you can do is great. And now we're going to move on to show you the movie that we created over the last month. So it's like pretty amazing that it got done, really, because it was going through all of the footage of Ramdas in Maui and picking out the most poignant, beautiful pieces where he just be loved now, which is the name of that other book, right? Ramdas, be loved now, in this little film, and lots of moments of joy. And so, yeah, please enjoy, and we will. I'll come back on and introduce Hanuman Das at the temple in Taos, and then we'll have the movie of Maharaji, Made in India by Japna Tulsi. Here you go.
Aloha from Hawaii. Oh boy.
I love you. The radiance is so beautiful. There's usually one person in the audience in a regular lecture. This is different. That's usually brought by their husband or their wife, and they just sit cross. And I usually spot that person, and I cuddle up to them, and usually it doesn't work. But the wheelchair does wonders. Namaste.
Namaste. I'm really happy to be here, R.D.
Yeah?
Yeah, this is great for me. Well, you know, when I invited you back for that talk at Harvard, and you gave the talk in a long white gown, kulfi, I guess.
Yeah.
And you had this jola, and you had a big white beard, and you sat cross-legged on the desk instead of going to the podium. And it was clear that not only was there something else, you were also something else. And you were channeling Maharaji so strongly. You've just been back a few months, and the Shakti in the room was unbelievable. And this is a room, at Harvard that had never had an ounce of Shakti in it before. So it lasted and lasted. And I think it was a taste for, I think what you were doing and have done all these years is been a conduit for Maharaji, and given people a felt sense of this other way of being.
But you remember when we talked, you said that somebody, a fellow psychologist, asked you about me.
Yeah, so the next day I'm having lunch with one of my clinical psychology professors who hadn't gone to the talk, and he wants to hear about the talk. And I'm saying, well, this guy sat on the table cross-legged for 5 hours, and he was wearing a gown, and he was carrying some kind of bag, and what you were saying. And then he says to me, in a kind of confidential clinical tone, he says, tell me, is he psychotic?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought, well, if this is psychosis, I'd like some too. It was pretty good.
This year I celebrated Christmas by going for a swim in the ocean, and up from the bottom came a turtle. It must have been 100 years old, way big. And then it came up and took some air, went down again, and it was unexpected, and I was frightened because it was so big under me. But then when somebody said, it's a very loving turtle. And I felt my heart go out to the turtle. And all there was love with this turtle. And it was my head, fear, and then love.
My wisdom suggests that I don't know anything. Identify with the real self in the heart. That's a doing thing. And you also might, to remind yourself, say, I am awareness here. I am a loving awareness. And then bring your attention to that space, and you just be. You just be. All you do is be awareness. That's not doing. You are that, so you're being awareness.
I can feel it just being with you. I was a little nervous about interviewing you. I was thinking to myself, what am I going to say? Am I going to ask the right questions? But just, it's be here now. It's being with your soul, right? It's just
be here now is beautiful. The instruction and to people to be here now, because again with the mind. When you take the future and the past out of the mind, because the future and the past are thoughts. That's all. All your past is a thought, and I say, once you get in this moment, go into the moment and get rid of the past and get rid of the future and just go into this. That's where you will face God. That's where you will face the immensity of the universe in the moment. in the moment. And I can't treat the present as if I had the eyes I had 20 years ago. 20 years ago and earlier, I had human motives that I was struggling with. And now they've calmed down. They're still around, but they're calm. I went in my past, I was identified with my motives. I was identified with sexual desire. I was identified with power desire. I was identified with sensual desire. But now they're little schmooze. I have them, but they aren't me. God has a closet with different suits. There's a Jesus suit, and there's Buddha suit, and he's going to not he. Not
Thank
he.
you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Different dresses.
Can I tell the truth real quick?
Okay. Don't go too far now.
Truth.
I am terrified of you. That's the truth. You invited me to do this, to come here and do this many, many months ago. And I've been nervous ever since. And, yesterday you said that you don't have any... I know! Yesterday you said you don't have any regrets in life. And I was thinking, well, he's about to have one, letting me be up here on stage. But I was thinking, as I was thinking about this, about being up here with you and getting to chat with you and Raghu, I realized that the way I feel about you is the exact way that I feel about love, which is that it's terrifying. I don't feel like I deserve it, but I desperately want it in my life. And I think that's the way that I feel about you, Ramdas.
Maharaji is a fisherman and you're the fish, and I'm the worm.
You could have said bait.
Look at each bead and see the name of God. God bless you.
Thank you.
It's all right to say God bless you
to a Buddhist.
Yes.
Well, whoever it is, I accept. I accept. So if people want to live in a way that is both happy or joyful in a deep way and connected to life, they need to find some way in their life to listen to or be tuned to the spiritual heart.
Yeah, that's true.
And to that dimension of love that ties the emotional and spiritual together. Is that right?
That is so right.
So on the way back down, the road was closed because there had been a big accident. An army truck fell over and all the ammunition fell everywhere. Well, so that morning they were pulling the truck up out of the... So the road was closed, so I called and left a message, saying, Ma shouldn't wait for me because we don't know how late it is. The road will be closed. And then it wound up opening up in about 25 minutes instead of like 2 or 3 hours, I think. So I got there, and I said, and she said, I wasn't going to wait for you. You've been here so long. She said, Krishna Das is coming. I'm not going to wait for you. And she grabbed me.
The guy came to see me, and he said, you were the guy that talks to your dead guru? I said, yeah. He said, don't you know that's your imagination? I said, yeah. You guys, what's in your imagination?
None of your business.
That's the Buddhist view, right? None of your business.
There's no safety anywhere in the room except in you as the caregiver. There's something in you that knows this from direct experience, that death is safe, or trust the catcher.
That's right. That's right. Very beautiful. Right?
Thanks, boss.
And I just saw emptiness and love being the same thing.
How can they be the same thing?
Because emptiness really is empty of self.
Oh.
And so when self is gone, then there's no separation.
Self. And then you go into love.
Yes.
Wow.
If there's no self, there's no other.
No self, no other. Then you enter into emptiness. That's what I was, the word emptiness got me.
Yeah. Well, you definitely chose the better word. I mean, between love and emptiness, let's say, I'll take emptiness. Most people, you have the better PR word.
I empty you.
But if you take the I and the you out of it, then there's just love or just emptiness or whatever you want to call it.
That's what unconditional love.
Uh-huh.
That love, I had never experienced that love. All my parents and my professors and my friends, they wanted loving me to this and to that and be a good boy and da. And then he was loving me, just loving me. Just loving me. It was empty. It was empty. I have faith in spirit, and I don't have faith in what people tell me or books tell me, because that intuition, like I can be faith in Maharaji, but I don't have faith in Hinduism. That's a terrible thing to say. Love your breath. 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 You are a being, a conscious being, an aware being, a loving being, a light being, a peaceful being, a wise being. Namaste. Perfect.
Tell me, don't worry, 'cause I'm coming. I'm a soul man. I'm a soul man. I'm a soul man. I'm a soul man. I got what I got the hard way. I got to make it better each and every day. Oh, honey, I said don't you fret, because you ain't seen nothing yet. I'm a soul man. I'm a soul
Pass. Hi, I hope everybody enjoyed. I enjoyed it for the 350,000th time that I've watched it. It still is amazing. I mean, I just love seeing all those moments with Ramdas in Maui. I was able to live in the last month in his lap, Ramdas's lap. It's just so great. Oh boy, it'll be available. You can tell other people. They'll be able to check back to see it. Just go to, again, ramdas.org/celebration. And also there'll be a donate a button there. So you can help out Neem Karoli Baba Ashram and Hanuman Temple with support. And this, of course, was so dear to Ramdas over all of these many, many years since he brought Hanuman back in the late 70s from India. And I want to introduce Hanuman Das, John Kane, who basically takes care of the entire wonderful ashram and temple and has been, God, doing this for a long, long time. Welcome, Hanuman Das. I'm welcoming you, and you are silent. But, there you are.
Hey, Raghu, nice to see you.
And look, he's right in the temple. There's Hanuman behind, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And just like being in there now, it's so fun. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
The magic of Zoom. So I'm going to let you introduce this movie by Japna, and it's again something that there's just incredible visuals in this movie, aside from what you'd expect, which is, of course, some footage and pictures of Maharaji, as well as wonderful interviews. But there's some really cool shots of just being in India. So if you haven't been to India, you kind of go to India a little bit in this movie. And not to mention scenes like I never saw Maharaji's cave in Neem Karoli in India, which is near Agra. So take it from here. And yeah, Hanuman Das.
Thank you, Raghu. Ram Ram, everybody. As you can see, I'm blessed to be here in this beautiful temple that we built for Hanuman, and was one of the projects that I worked very closely for many years with Ramdas over, and was very fortunate to be that person. But I want to thank Love Serve Remember and its incredible team for pulling this together, this beautiful celebration and commemoration for Ramdas on one of the most auspicious days we could have. Not only is it the solstice, but it is Sri Neem Karoli Baba's solar birthday. Wow. Only Ramdas and Maharaji could pull that one off. Yeah. I know I'm here to introduce the movie, but I need to just talk a little bit about Ramdas because he was so much to me. We had a long relationship, but mostly he was somebody that, for the most part, for me, walked his talk. And I'll tell you a little story. In the late 80s, I was traveling. I was on my way to India, and I stopped in Thailand and planned on spending about a week there. Well, the night that I arrived in Thailand, almost all my money was taken. And I really did not have a clue what I was going to do. I was staying in a very cheap hotel. And the next morning I thought, okay, I have a ticket at least to get out of here. And I'm walking along the road and I see somebody that I recognize, and they happen to be kind of a peripheral Ramdas and Maharaji devotee. And we talk and I tell him what happened. And he said, oh, I'm leaving tomorrow. Come stay at my hotel until you figure it out. Well, he happened to be in a nice fancy hotel. And I was like, great. And he said, I'll pay for 3 nights for you. So I thought, well, I've got 3 nights in a nice hotel and I'll figure something else out. Well, he got back to America and told some other people about what had happened. And the word got to Ramdas. And Ramdas traced that person down and found out what hotel it was, called the number of the room that I was staying in. I'm sitting in the room, the phone rings, and I'm like, what? Nobody has this number. Why are they calling me? I pick up the phone, and all I hear is the voice on the other end say, not hello, not what's up, how can I help? And that was, I mean, that phrase, those words, is something he said to me over and over the next 30 years, especially with trying to build this mandir for Hanuman. I'd call him up and say, I've got this problem. How can I help? What can I do? And so he was not only my friend, my teacher, my mentor, my brother, but he was my protector. And I can't tell you how much it means to me that I was blessed to be somebody that had him in their life on an intimate level. Baba Ramdas ki jai.
Yeah.
We did a beautiful flower puja here this morning in his honor, and I wish that I had a zoom on my camera because the flowers and the puja are still on the tucket. But so thank you, Raghu, and Love Serve Remember, and all you wonderful people that pulled this off. A really special day to honor Ramdas and celebrate Neem Karoli Baba's birthday.
Yeah. Thank you for letting me sit in the temple right now. It's so great.
Oh, you know, and this film, Windfall of Grace, I don't have words to describe how it affected me other than that I did feel I had darshan. And knowing Japna and speaking with her and finding out the history of how this movie came to be, to me, it is one of Neem Karoli Baba's miracle of love stories. Japna was not an accomplished filmmaker. She hadn't made any major film or worked in films previous to deciding that she wanted to make this film for Maharaji. And by his grace, she has made it. She not only was the editor, but the producer, the director, and found the film crews to help her with it. She didn't have one crew that she worked with all the time, and filmed hours and hours and hours of film, and then did the editing herself. And her ability to make this film that truly does give you darshan of Maharaji, that shows you in essence that if you've never been with him in his body, you will get a sense of what it was like to be with him. The stories that people tell in the movie are just so beautiful. The footage not only of places where Baba spent time, but this special video that is there of him that is shown at times in the movie is just incredible. It's an experience of his presence that I think everybody will appreciate. And Japna and the people that she worked with have done a wonderful job. So for Japna, Tulsi, and the people who have created this wonderful film about Neem Karoli Baba, and it is a testament to their love and devotion that it has come out so beautiful. Thank you, Japna. Thank you, everybody who worked on it. Thank you to all those people who helped her make the right connections with the right people to make it happen. Windfall of Grace, please enjoy, and I'm looking forward to watching it again myself. Ram Ram, everybody.
Ram Ram.
We cannot say anything about these things, nothing. They can say sometime, when Maharaji left his body many years before that, he used to say, there was a Baba who left his body and his body was cremated. After 1 month he reappeared. So what was his aim of telling why he told? Nobody can say about that.